Hello, everyone. My name is Stephanie Searles, and this is my comprehensive annual financial report, otherwise known as CAFR, analysis for the City of Banning. This is for MPA 530, Public Finance and Budgeting, with Dr. Beth A. Groves. Hello, class. For the past few weeks, we have been doing more or less of a budgetary analysis for the different government entities. And my focus has been on the City of Banning, which is located right here in Riverside County, California. This week, I will focus on an analysis of Banning's City Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, shortened as CAFR. And some of the key areas that I will focus on in my presentation include, identifying the city's position in terms of fiscal solvency, identifying the indicators or explaining the indicators that I've used to determine the City of Banning's fiscal solvency, as well as how the city's budget differs from the comprehensive annual financial report. Based on an analysis of the city's CAFR, I can say that the City of Banning is fiscally solvent. Now, while the city's debt position with respect to its long-term liabilities is in fact quite high, other pointers show that the city is currently financially solvent. This position may change in the future depending on how the city will handle its obligations towards those long-term liabilities that we discussed. And in the following slides, I will elaborate further on how this conclusion was made. I used some of Brown's 10-point test and Dennis Wang and Chu's solvency test to determine whether the city is fiscally solvent. The following are some of the tests that I found to be relevant in terms of assessing the city's fiscal solvency position. The first indicator is a long-term debt to assets value indicator, calculated by dividing the long-term general obligation debt divided by total general fund revenues. This figure returns the general solvency ratio that assesses the city's capability to meet its long-term financial obligations. Based on the CAFR, we can see that the city's total long-term debts for the financial year 1920 equated to $30,731,520, and the general fund revenues equated to $19,808,559. Dividing the two shows that the city has over $1.5 million of debt for every dollar of asset. The second indicator is the intergovernmental revenues total revenues percentage. This is an indicator that shows how much of the city's revenue comes from other intergovernmental transfers other than the city's own sources. To get this figure, we divided the intergovernmental revenues for the general fund by total general fund revenues. The intergovernmental revenues for the year 1920 was $197,054, while the total general fund revenues, as previously highlighted, was $19,808,559. Dividing the two indicates that almost 1% of the city's revenues came from intergovernmental revenues, and that a majority of the city's general fund was collected internally. The third indicator is property tax, which measures how much of the city's revenue comes from taxes. This is a good indicator when compared with the intergovernmental revenue over general funds, since it measures the city's ability to sustain itself without depending on other intergovernmental agencies. This indicator is derived by dividing the total tax revenues levied locally for the general fund by total general fund revenues. From a glance at the CAFR, we can see that tax revenues for the city contributed to over 50% of the general fund revenues, which is a positive sign showing that the city's position, is positive in terms of solvency. Outside of the three listed indicators, I also determined the following relevant in establishing the city's solvency position: operating ratio, long-term liability ratio, expenses per capita, as well as revenue per capita. The city's budget is, in fact, quite different from CAFR. One of the most significant differences is the amount of information presented by CAFR when comparing that to the budget. The budget had projections on general revenue items and how the revenue is going to be spent, while CAFR had significantly more than how the actual revenues were collected and spent. The budget was also forward-looking with limited room for financial analysis compared to the CAFR. And that concludes my week 4 presentation. I hope everyone is having a fantastic week as well as a fantastic semester. Thank you and have a blessed one.